Hey guys, it's Harleywood. About a year and a half ago, I posted a video comparing 4 different AR15 triggers. I'll post a link in the description below. Within that year and a half, it easily became my most popular video. It's coming up on 500,000 views. It's time to do a follow-up and show you more trigger options. That previous video featured a Timney trigger, a Triggertech trigger, a Geissele 2-stage trigger, and a CMC trigger. In that video, I mentioned that the Geissele was my least favorite, and that is simply because I don't really care for 2-stage triggers. Totally a personal preference. Some people love them, and I just tend to not. And I got a lot of heat in the comments where guys were, oh, it's the best, and with no real way of quantifying their opinion. Highly scientific opinions is what I got. In this video, we're going to show you some more objective viewpoints. We're going to show you the actual way that these triggers compare in their take-up, in their break, in their over-travel, in their reset, in their prices, and I'm going to give you some grids and help you kind of quantify. Okay, from left to right. Up first, POF USA. This one is the 3.5 pound version with the flat blade on it. I'm going to post on the bottom of the screen the exact model for each of these as I'm showing them to you. This particular one is probably the easiest of the group to install. It does not have those set screws on the bottom like you'll see on some of these others. Instead, you see these rubber spacers here. So what you have to do is push this down into your receiver, and it keeps your pins not quite indexed with the receiver until you push down, compressing these a little bit. Then you slide your pins in and release, and these provide kind of that upwards pressure on the pins. So you don't really need anti-walk, anti-rotation pins. These kind of serve that purpose for you. Up next, the Elftmann Tactical Match Trigger. The adjustable pull weight on this is controlled with that little set screw right there. It is adjustable from 2 3/4 pounds up to 4 pounds. This is the flat blade version. I love a flat blade trigger. For me, they just tend to be the most comfortable, or even one that is just slightly bowed, kind of like the Black Rain back here, or like a Timney trigger. I don't really care for ones with a more traditional hook quite as much. You will notice those set screws on the bottom of this one, so you do have to get an Allen wrench down in there, and those screws lift this up in the receiver and provide torque against those your hammer and your trigger pins. I will say those set screws are extremely tight from the factory. I actually twisted 2 Allen wrenches getting this thing installed, and not a big deal. Once it loosened up a little bit, it wasn't horrible, but this one is probably one of the more challenging. I don't want to say it's difficult to install, but it'll take you a few more minutes, especially if your set pins are like mine. Okay, up next is the Black Rain trigger. This one is the cheapest of the group. It has a very slight bow to it, a very slight curve to the bow. It is a drop-in cassette style. You can see the torque screws there. This one actually comes with anti-rotation sets, so you can stop your pins from walking out. Forgot to mention that the POF also comes with these kind of older bubble style versions. But again, this model is very simple to install, and these torque down much easier than the Elftmann. Alright, up next, the Rise Armament. This is the 434 model. This one is also a 3.5 pound trigger, and it is not adjustable. This has a almost straight bow, just very slightly curved. It is the longest bow of the group. So it does not come with any pins or anti-walk, anti-rotation setup. So it is the simplest of the group and one of the cheapest. And last but not least is the Geissele S3G. Yes, that is how you say his name, Geissele. I had a bunch of guys in the last video tell me I was saying it wrong. Go watch Bill Geissele pronounce his own name. This is the S3G version. It is a single stage trigger, unlike most of Geissele's triggers. It does come with its own trigger and hammer pins, so you don't have to worry there. It also comes with 2 different springs, both a 3.5 pound spring and a 4.5 pound spring. So you can put in the one that works for you. I will say, you know, all of these are nice, and a lot of them have a lot of careful milling that went into them. This one is a very pretty trigger. If you look at this thing, I can see why Geissele's cost a lot. I can see why they are a favorite. They are extremely nicely done. They break pretty cleanly. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but I don't know if it's one of my favorites. Let's see how it compares to these others. Here's how this is going to work. You'll notice there's this small paper grid behind the trigger here. The increments that you see there are in millimeters, so you have 2, 4, 6, 8 millimeters. We're going to see how much take-up the trigger has and be able to measure that. we're going to see how much travel it has after the break, and then we're going to see how much reset it has. All right, let's do it. So this trigger is very light at 3.5 pounds, and you can see there is virtually no take-up. I cannot discern any movement in the trigger. If I continue to apply pressure, there's my break. Hard to tell on camera. It looks like that might be right at the 2 millimeter mark. And then the reset is a full reset, which makes sense because there was no take-up in the beginning. Up next, the Elftmann Tactical. There is no movement in the trigger, so no take-up. That break looks to be about 3 millimeters. And that reset is basically back to 0. Makes sense with no take-up. Now this one does have a little more over travel. I can tell that it breaks, and the trigger still has movement after the break. But it is probably a cleaner break than that POF. It feels much crisper. Next, the Black Rain. There's ever so slight movement on the trigger. Don't know that I'd really call it take-up, but you can see just a tiny bit of movement there. 3 millimeters of travel. It's hard to tell from looking at this little screen. If I make any mistakes, I'll put it on the annotations below. The reset is a full reset. There's virtually no take-up. A little bit spongy on that backside. It's a clean break. It's probably comparable to the POF. I don't know that I'd call it quite as crisp as the Elftmann, but definitely a very clean break. Next is the 434 from Rise Armament. This one has probably the longest bow of any in this group. No take-up. You're at the wall. Ooh, that's a good break. Looks like 2 millimeters. And a full 2 millimeter reset. That's a pretty nice break on this one. Super clean. Last but not least, the Geissele S3G, the one that is the biggest pain in the butt to install of the ones we've done today. It took an excruciating 90 seconds, but that's only because it's not a drop-in cassette style trigger. Let's get started. Now this is what they call a single stage trigger, but look at that take-up. There's 2 millimeters of take-up. Let's do that again. There is a good 2 millimeters of take-up and a lot of over travel. We're at 6 overall. So there was 2 millimeters of take-up, the break, and then another 4 millimeters of over travel. Let's see the reset. So back to 1 to reset, take-up to 2, break, lots of spongy over travel. Once again, these are just not my favorite triggers. The break is decent. They like to call it a snap of a carrot. I prefer more of the Timney style glass rod, but that is a completely subjective opinion. Look at all that over travel. The POF USA. £3 pounds 11 ounces. £3 pounds 9 ounces. £3 pounds 8 ounces. The Elftmann. Now keep in mind, this one is adjustable from supposedly 2.75 on up to 4. And I found you can stretch the limits of that a little bit. So this one's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to show you kind of the low end of it, but it's very different from the others. Let's go ahead and show you. I've backed this screw pretty much all the way out. £2, 13 ounces. £2, 10 ounces. £2, 9 ounces. The Black Rain. £3, 13 ounces. £3, 10.9 ounces. £3, 10 ounces. And the Rise Armament. £4 even. £3, 6 ounces. £3, 10 ounces. And now the Geissele. £4, 11 ounces. £4, 12 ounces. £4, 11 ounces. So which trigger is the best? Kind of depends on what you're looking for. This is a tough one. I'm going to put up a little chart right here. Let's go through some of this. So let's talk about price first. The Rise Armament is the cheapest one. Comes in at $159 at the time of shooting this video. The Elftmann was the most expensive. And as we go through some of the rest of this stuff, you'll have to weigh whether that's worth it for you or not. Let's talk about the advertised pull weight. The Elftmann had the lowest advertised pull weight because it has that range of 2.75 on up to 4. And let's talk about the actual pull weight. I measured it at 2.6. Now, depending on where on the bow you get that thing and kind of the median average, that can alter a little bit. It's real hard to get it consistently on the exact right part of the bow and pull it the same every single time. So the Elftmann, though, came in the lowest. However, that may not be what you value. If you want a self-defense trigger, you may want something with a little bit higher pull weight. You may want a 4.5 or 5.5 pound pull weight. Let's talk about installation. The POF by far is the easiest to install. You have those two little rubber things underneath. You simply depress it down, slide your pins in, and they provide that tension so that your pins don't come back out. You don't have anti-walk, anti-rotation pins. You don't have a separate assembly with the hammer and the trigger assembly, having to be two different parts like the Geissele's. So the POF is the easiest to install by far. Some people aren't going to care about this next set. I gave the Rise Armament the actual win in terms of the break and the overall take-up, over-travel, reset. It just had the least and the best break, so I gave it the win in those. Now, it actually had the same take-up, over-travel, and reset as the POF, but I gave it the win because of the break. The break on that one, super clean. If you consider that's the cheapest one in the group, it's a pretty good option. If you look at this new chart here, I've actually rolled in the triggers from my previous video. So I would still encourage you, go watch that video. I did make some mistakes. That pull weight thing, I literally took it out of the box and started using it, and so you'll notice that I made some mistakes. But the Timney is the one that I would give the hardest installation to. The Timney has not only those set screws, but also then has set screws that go down on top of the set screws. So whenever you want to take that thing out, you don't just loosen the two screws and pull it out. You have to take the two set screws out and then loosen the two set screws. It's a pain in the butt. I have moved that trigger to several different platforms and I dread it every single time. However, I am giving that one pretty much the equal break with the Rise Armament. The Timney just consistently has the cleanest break. They call it that glass rod. It literally is like if you had a little glass rod and you just snap that thing. It is so clean, so crisp, but you pay for it. So which trigger is the best? Well, depends on what you value. If you notice on that chart, when I roll all the triggers in together, I gave a lot of green to the Triggertech. That is still my favorite trigger. Here it is on my Joint Force Enterprises SPR. I absolutely love this trigger. It pretty much checks all the boxes for me. It's a flat bow, it's adjustable from low to a decent high range, mid-range. It's got a super tight brake, very light reset. It kind of does it all for me. It's expensive though, so you gotta pay to play. Due to some of YouTube's policies, I cannot post a link in the description below to where to get these triggers. I have a promo code. There's more details in the description below. Follow the link to my blog to get that promo code and find out more. I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea of the differences between some of these triggers. If you have any questions, if I made any mistakes, please give me a little grace on that and call it out in the comments below, and we'll take it from there. Thank you for watching, guys. If you like this video, please hit that subscribe button below. Got lots more videos to come, and we'll see you in the next one.